Alrighty, we are live. Hello, everyone. This is the first stream I've ever done on this channel. Not the first stream I've done, ever, obviously. But on today's stream, we're going to be talking about all things Hispanic history. Whether that be the Reconquista, Mexico, the independence wars of Latin America, even as recently as modern history. I am, Alfonso, and with me is, someone I haven't, someone I will probably bring onto this channel quite a bit, because he is a fellow language and history freak just like myself. He is also Hispanic as well. May I introduce my secondary host, Luis?
What up, yo? It's fucking Felipe here with the history and language stuff.
Right, and yeah, we're just here to talk all things Hispanic and Latino history. So, Felipe, you want to start with anything in particular?
Sure, why not? Actually, like all historians should start with, we should start with the conquest of the Americas by the Spanish.
Yeah, so as we all know, Christopher Columbus. What do they call them? I forget what they call him in Mexico and Latin Central America. What do they call him?
We call him Cristobal Colon.
Uh-huh. And he was obviously played by the Los Reyes Católicos, Isabel and Fernando of Castile and Aragon. Trastamara guys who finished the Reconquista. Which, if you know anything really about Spanish history, you know what the Reconquista is, because Spain was for a very very long time, about 700 years, ruled by Moorish powers. But things kind of went up from there, and Spain eventually ruled most of the continent as well as Portugal, and this is what we generally would call Latin America. Hello,
Yeah.
Jaden.
Any
Regardless.
Latin America is basically any region conquered by Spain, Portugal, or even France, for example, because the French did their job as well.
Right. So, yeah, people, it's Latin American and Hispanic are pretty confusing terms, I would say. But the way I generalize it is Hispanic people are from Spain. Hispanic people is like people from the Iberian Peninsula. So that would actually include Portuguese people. I would actually put Portuguese people under the label of Hispanic. I don't know about you, Luis, but I personally would. That's just me.
Interesting. Actually, I would have put Hispanic people as just the people from Spain or like with Spanish background because
Uh huh.
I know that Portugal was part of like the Roman provinces of Hispania, but it's it's been a vague term since then.
I mean, like, based on like background research, I think people from Galicia are a lot more similar to Portuguese people than they are to Spanish people. To be fair, right? But
Yeah.
you know, that's just me. Now that's regardless of all that. Let's move on to something else. So, who do you think? Okay, so out of the various like people responsible for Spanish colonialism in the Americas, who do you think was the most important? Who do you think is the most important person to be covered?
That's pretty debatable because in history books, what's really been talked about, the most important people to conquer the Americas were two actually, not just one. So between Hernan Cortés and
Uh huh.
Francisco Pizarro, I
Yep.
wouldn't know what to pick.
Yeah, because they're both very, very important people to the history of Central America. You had Cortés, who I'm actually a direct descendant of. Funny enough, hee hee. I'm a descendant of a guy
You're a
responsible for
descendant of a
genocide.
freaking conquer.
Sorry, Felipe. I didn't mean to conquer your people, man.
Sure. I'm also half native, so fuck you, Whitey.
Regardless of that, fool. Yeah. The conquest of the I mean, I feel like if they had been left to their own devices, the Aztecs could have developed a truly, great empire. I'm not saying the Aztec Empire wasn't great because it's in its own regards, it was. The Aztecs were very, very advanced for especially for that part of the world. They made European cities look. What's the word you would say?
They made European cities look a bit, I would say, they made European cities look not as cleansed.
Yeah. I mean, there are a few gripes I would have with, say, the Aztec sacrificial stuff, but that's you can overlook that. I mean, I'd say that the Inca were a lot worse because at least the Aztecs didn't drug people and leave them on cliffs to die. Because that's what the Inca
No.
did. But still a lot of bad stuff. I mean, every civilization's done bad stuff, obviously. But, look at the ancestor of all Latin-speaking countries. Rome. Look at all the crazy shenanigans they got up to back in their day. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
But regardless of that, Cortes. Interestingly enough, and I think I actually might do a video on this, is how languages and how Cortes had to have a few translators coming around with him to even get around in Mexico at the time because like a lot of because they didn't just speak Nahuatl. He had someone who found Chuntal, and then they had to translate, and then someone who understood Chuntal, and they had to translate the Nahuatl. So it was
Yep.
just a interesting kind of cycle, and I think that would be kind of I know Native Lang did a video on that, but I think it would be an interesting subject to talk about how Mexico was conquered not only through military might, because the military aspect of the conquest of Mexico, I mean, like people act like the Spanish, did a lot of it. A lot of it, what led to the fall of that city, Tenochtitlan, was disease and a lot of other stuff.
Yep. Not to mention that Tenochtitlan was built in a lake.
Yeah, and that lake is currently sinking, so Mexico City is kind of just barely
It's
holding
having
on.
its own problems, its own wages.
I read somewhere that it's sinking about 2 meters every single year, which to me
Yep.
is just crazy. You know.
That's what happens whenever you build your city in a lake.
Okay, but here's the thing, and I'm gonna put you at your faults here, Spain. The Spanish messed up a lot of the what you call it. The Spanish messed a lot up of the geography and all that. Hold up, someone named Max Bakowski. You know who that is? He's live, so I'm just gonna pop in and say hi, just to be nice. Regardless of that, um, what else do you think is important to cover when it comes to that whole part of uh, all that?
Well, the thing that first came into mind was actually the overlooked conquistadors, like, for example, Alonso de Ojeda, who conquered much of the Lesser Antilles.
I think I've heard of him. I don't. The name rings a bell. That's for damn sure. Um, there was also God, I forget his name. Pedro. Hold up.
Alvarado,
Alvarado. Yeah, he conquered
Pedro
Panama.
Alvarado.
He was the guy who conquered Panama, and I only know that because I did do research about Panama for a class. I forget what class it was now, but that's the main thing I got out of it. He also, yeah, that was a crazy time and all of that. But
Yeah, to be honest, I think Pedro Alvarado was the one who actually conquered much of Central America besides Cortes.
oh yeah, because it was Cortes, and then it was I mean the stuff that Pedro, fuck, I can't remember his last name, but you know who I'm talking about. A
Hmm.
lot of the stuff he conquered were they were jumping points for Francisco Pizarro's expeditions into Peru. I don't know if you knew that, but that is something I read about.
I only knew he conquered much of what was little of the Aztec Empire, not that much further. I know Nuño de Guzman kind of conquered a bit of the north, and then freaking Pedro Alvarado did Central America.
That's what I've been reading. But with the conquest of the New World, have you ever? Okay, there was this one Chilean rebel that I read about. That he resisted so hard against the Spanish that when they captured him, they just let him go if he didn't resist, like fight the Spanish anymore. Spoiler alert: he did continue to fight the Spanish, and they just cut off his tongue and killed him. But I don't remember his name, but that
Was it
was.
Lautaro?
I think so. I can't remember off the top of my head. I believe so.
Yeah, I believe you're talking about Lautaro because Lautaro was the one who actually rebelled against the Spanish. He was part of the Spanish uh, force, I think. He was captured, and then after like seeing how the Spanish used their weapons, he went to his people, the Mapuche, and then he instructed them to fight like the Spanish.
And the yeah, what was interesting I read about that is they respected him, and then when he rebelled again, they killed him. But that just goes to show, people obviously. I mean, there's a lot of resentment of our colonial past, and even still, I get shit for being Spanish. It's kind of weird, but it's whatever I get.
Yeah.
I get that we did a lot of stuff. I'm not gonna deny that.
I was
But
still
now,
gonna give shit to you for being Spanish, though. Just saying.
yeah, but me and you are buddies, so I don't care.
Yeah.
Um, and then Spain's going along well, and then we get to a nasty part of Spanish history, the War of the Spanish Succession. Oh boy. So what is your opinion about okay, so before we move on to Bourbon Spain, what was your opinion about Habsburg Spain?
My opinion about Habsburg Spain is pretty simple, and I'm actually pretty kind of I didn't really go into detail with the Habsburgs, but geez, their last period was like full of inbreds that it was really impossible to reign.
Yeah, Carlos wasn't he the second? Yeah, he was the second. And then okay, so that was like after 3 generations of inbreeding. But the messed up part is that he was so messed up he could barely function as a human being.
Yep.
Basically, couldn't do much of anything. Um, and the only reason the Spanish throne went to the Bourbons is because of a marriage. Even though, okay, so there are a lot of great debates as to whether the throne should have gone to so and so in Spanish history. But I do think that the Bourbons had a better claim than Karl of Austria when it came to the Spanish throne in that instance.
Yep.
They were at a closer relation. But when we talk about Carlist claimants, I say it gets a lot more complicated.
Yep.
So now let's move on to Bourbon Spain. So Bourbon Spain, and we're talking about the period from 1701 until 1833, because I like to call the period after the reign of Ferdinand VII the Alfonsine Bourbon period,
Yep.
and then that leads into the Carlist Wars and all that. But um, what I like to think about that period is you had it was a mixed bag. Like you had competent kings like Felipe V, but you also had and Carlos III, who even though like he did good things, he did bad things. He also created the modern Spanish flag. But you had absolutely incompetent kings like Ferdinando VI, Luis I, Carlos IV, which was the majority of the kings in that era. They were just very incompetent. Carlos IV basically lost the entire empire due to his idiocy.
Also, I think you kind of did a mistake on Felipe V in the 18th century.
Yes, he was. No, Felipe. No, I'm talking about the seventh. Yes, he was in the 18th century.
I did
Or
not see.
no, look it up, Felipe V, because Felipe IV was from 1621 to 1665, and then Felipe V, who was the first Bourbon king of Spain, that was 1701, initially to 1724, and then gap about a year, like not a year, but like 8 months, and then he reigned from 24 to 48. Hold on,
Hmm.
let me fact check myself. Because I don't want to be spreading false information here, So let's just pull this up. Felipe the reign, 1700 to 1724 was his first initial reign, and then he ruled again from September 1724 to July of 1746. So yeah, that looks about right.
I guess I over. Hmm. Interesting.
I mean, like you like your Mexican history, but you do know quite a bit. So like, the incompetence of the Bourbons, at least the early Bourbons, kind of shows with Charles IV, and he allied himself with Napoleon. Now there were several. Now in the Spanish colonies, there was. Would you call it a caste system, or do you think there's a different kind of nickname for it?
In Mexico, we call it a caste system, so I would
I
say
would
caste
call it.
system.
I would call it a caste system because my Honduran friend calls it a caste system as well. So, if you didn't know, in the Spanish colonies, there was 1700 to 01. I thought the War of the Spanish Succession lasted a lot longer. I think it was like 1701 to 1714, something like that. I don't remember. I'll have to look it up. But, because a lot of this I'm just going off of what I know for fact. But what was I talking about?
You were talking about the so-called caste system that you don't recall as the caste system. Jesus, English sucks ass.
Oh yeah, the caste system. So at the very top, you had a group called the Peninsulares, who were people who were straight from Spain. You know, like they just came over from Spain to rule. They were basically the very rich kind of people. And then
They were the OG of the OG.
yeah, and then under them, was it the Hidalgos or the Criollos?
Fucking criollos.
The Criollos. They were, I think they were first generation born in the colonies of Spaniards.
Yeah, actually, they were any.
Huh?
They were any colonial person of Spanish descent who was born in the Americas.
I see.
Or America.
And then below them, you had the Mestizos.
Mixed Spanish and indigenous.
The best way to describe Mestizos is that they're bastardized criollos, if you can put it like that. And then below them, you had the indigenous, which when you get to the bottom two, which were the indigenous and then the blacks, you're really hitting the bottom of the bottom when it comes to the Spanish caste system in the Americas.
Yeah.
But and what ended up happening in a lot of Latin American countries is the criollos got sick of Spanish rule because various reasons, and I'll have my friend here explain those reasons to you.
Okay, so the criollos, some of them, like in Mexico's case, was because, according to Miguel Hidalgo de Costilla, he wanted Fernando VII to come back, but that is pretty skeptical. And for other cases, like Chileans criollo or Argentine and Venezuelan, they just wanted independence from Spain because they were just tired of all the taxes and all that shit.
Yeah, in Venezuela, Colombia's case, you had a very famous Latin American revolutionary. Might have heard of him, Simón Bolivar.
Simón Bolivar.
Yes, Bolivar. I've heard it said both ways. But what is there not to say about Simón Bolivar? What is there not to say?
Exactly.
He's like Colombian George Washington. You know what I'm saying? Like, in Mexico, you had, what was his name?
You actually had two, Miguel Hidalgo de Costilla, and then you had Jose Maria Morelos y Pavón.
Yeah. And then in Chile, you had Bernardo O'Higgins, and then what am I thinking? That's basically the major figures because I can't really think of anyone else. I don't remember who the Argentinian guy was.
You forgot about Jose de San Martin?
Jose de San Martin. You're correct. Oh shoot! Who is texting me? Yeah.
The fucking police are outside my window. I think they want to fucking deport my ass.
Dude, you're not gonna get deported, fool. What are you talking about? Fool, you ain't getting deported. Don't even, fool. That's
so much for being a fucking Mexican, anyway.
Shut up. But what were we referring to again? Yeah. So initially, what might interest people is how Latin America wasn't really as divided as you might think it was back then. You had, like, I'd say initial independence, like, let's say like 1822. You had the first Mexican Empire.
Yep.
Which existed. You had Gran Colombia, which also existed. I say existed because these states really didn't last all that long. You know what I'm saying?
They really lasted a really short time, and only because somebody was alive.
Yeah, I think the first Mexican Empire lasted not even 2 years, and then I think Gran Colombia lasted about 5. And then there was the Republic of Central America, which I don't even think lasted. Let's see. Which the Central American Republic is Central Republic of Central America is the date of its the constituent countries becoming independent is what marks Hispanic Heritage Month. You see, um independence from the Spanish Empire, September 15th, 1721, and then it broke apart.
From the Mexican Empire in, I think, 1823.
Yes, and then the thing dissolved in 18, 1841. So it actually lasts. I say it was the longest lasting. So it had El Salvador, Guatemala,
Honduras,
Honduras,
Nicaragua,
Nicaragua, Los Ayos,
Los Altos.
Los Altos. I read that as a Mosquito Coast, British Honduras, which was just Belize,
Hmm.
Free State of Costa Rica. That's an interesting flag. Wow. Okay, so that's actually interesting. I'm reading off of Wikipedia, which isn't the most reliable source, but I'd actually like to pull this up because it's actually kind of cool. But El Salvador's flag kind of looks like Uruguay's, which
Wow.
I it has like it has like that banner, like that kind of United States banner, but it has the Uruguayan kind of color scheme, and then it
I
has, which is actually kind of cool. And then it has, I can't really see the crest, but that's kind of cool. But that's actually pretty cool that it lasted longer than I thought it did. So that's done. And then you have what I like to call Mexico's 50 or so years of nonstop craziness.
50. Actually, it was like 20 or 30. Yeah, it
20
was
or
like
30.
20 or 30
And then we get
when
to
the
a
real shit
man
happened.
that if you know anything about Texas history, that you know the name of, you love it. Well, you probably don't love him, you hate him. Antonio Lopez de Santa Anna.
Pinche traidor. Actually, yeah, he wasn't really a traitor, but whatever.
I mean, you know who was a traitor to your country, arguably? Benito
Benito
Juarez.
Juarez.
I'd say.
You have a point, though. I mean, he was Zapotec, and then he didn't want to gain rights to his indigenous people. Not only that, but the Second Mexican Empire, in my opinion, and I think it would be in your opinion as well, if I
Mm-hmm.
remember correctly, the Second Mexican Empire was literally the closest you had to a Mexican paradise in the 19th century.
I would agree. I'm like, okay, a lot of Mexicans have like a lot of problems accepting this, but I think even you can get behind this. The closest thing to like even come close to what the Mexican Empire achieved was the reign of Porfirio Diaz.
Yeah, ish.
Ish, not like entirely. Like I'm not gonna be like, oh, Porfirio Diaz was a great guy. No, I'm not gonna go there.
No, he was not.
No, he was not. Definitely was not. But I would be the first to say that Porfirio Diaz did bring stability to Mexico. Like that's not deniable. Stability is can lead to bad things, obviously, but he did what he had to do to bring back the stability. I would say.
Yeah. Porfirio Diaz was the closest that we had to like a more Mexican traditionalist, not that much of a
Mexican Franco.
yeah, I would say that.
Mexican Franco. We'll be talking about Franco here in a bit, actually. Um, what was I gonna say? So Franco. No, I wasn't gonna talk about Franco. I was gonna talk about So yeah,
Porfiriato.
what Porfirio? No, we're gonna go back to Spain for a bit. So
Ah,
now we're gonna talk about the Alfonsine Bourbon period, which started in 1833. Now, first of all, before we get to the line of Spanish kings, there we have to talk about a little known thing called the Carlist succession.
Ooh boy.
I actually am gonna make a video about I'm actually gonna make a video about who would be Carlos, King of Spain today, because the answer is actually kind of interesting. But regardless of that, where this comes from is basically there was a guy in the 19th century called Don Carlos, and he was brother of Fernando VII of Spain. And Carlos didn't really was like Fernando was very liberal for his time, I would say. Like you know what I mean. But his brother, on the other hand, like the two guys you're talking to on the stream, was kind of traditionalist. Like as you can see from what I'm wearing, my display picture, I have a Carlist flag. But that's besides the point.
Oh shit.
So what?
I feel like it's time I fucking sing this.
Que voy
Voy a
a matar
matar
más
más.
que. Que voy
Voy a matar más. Que voy a matar más. Anyway.
Regardless of that, it's quite debatable who the legitimate thing was, because I'd say the Carlos were more legitimate in terms of the law. However, if you're going by what the strictly the king wanted, his daughter Isabella was more legitimate. But what it ultimately comes down is what you more value. Is it you value the wishes of your king, or you value the law? And I'm all for respecting my king, but I'd say the law is kind of important because it's something you want to uphold, and so therefore a lot of people would make the argument that the Carlist cause is somewhat legitimate. I don't know how you feel about the Carlists and how legitimate their case is.
Well, in my opinion, I am not really that much informed about the Carlos case because I've been always informed about the Alfonsine era. But I would say that, to be honest, Carlos de Bourbon should have been more legitimate just for the sake of him being the brother of Fernando VII.
Mm-hmm. And it's not because I have a problem with a woman. Like, woman is going to be a king, the queen of Spain in the future. And I ultimately don't care who the monarch of Spain is, but this is an interesting debate as to whether the Alfonsine or Carlist line is more legitimate. And that was a huge thing in the Spanish Civil War, which we're going to talk about in a bit.
Oh boy.
But Isabel was ousted from power in 1868 because she pissed off the liberals. And so, one of the darker periods in Spanish history, the first Spanish Republic,
Mm.
started. That didn't last more than a year, and then they tried to put an Italian guy named Amadeo on the throne. Nobody liked him, so they tried to put a brother of the Prussian King Wilhelm Leopold on the Spanish throne, and that led to the unification of Germany, incidentally. But back in Spain, the son of Isabel, Alfonso XII, came to power. Now, Alfonso XII, I can't really say anything notable about him, to be honest with you. What's more noticeable is that he died pretty young, and that he died while his wife was pregnant, so she actually briefly became Queen of Spain.
Maria
Now,
Cristina.
Maria Cristina, yeah. Now, if the if the baby, because you couldn't tell back then, if the baby was a boy, the throne would have immediately gone to the boy.
Yep.
If it was a girl, it would have gone to his eldest son, Maria. But incidentally, it was a boy. They named him Alfonso XIII, and he became king the second he came out of the womb. So he holds the record for the youngest possible world leader because he was king the second he was born.
Alfonso XIII, also known as the African, had a very interesting reign.
He did. He led Spain through some pretty turbulent times, and I actually theorize that if he hadn't been ousted from power at all, he would have actually been one of the longest reigning monarchs in history, due to the pure fact that life expectancies were rising, right? And he was king straight out of the womb.
He would have. He would. I don't know if he would beat Queen Elizabeth in 1941.
He died in 1941, but that was because he couldn't really get any medical assistance. He was exiled in fascist Italy. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're not gonna really
Yeah.
get that much help there. What I'm saying is, if he had been in Madrid, he would have had a higher chance of living longer. And he was only in his he was only like 50. Let me do the math. Okay, so he was. So it was 1941, and he was born in 1880.
7?
Hold up. Not XVII. That's Alfonso the 18th. That didn't exist. 1886. So let's do the math. He was only 55, so he could have potentially reigned for another, 10 to 15 years, I would say. Like 15 is pushing it, but I'd say a good 10 more years possibly.
Yeah.
But during the reign of Alfonso the 13th, he had a bit of a dictatorial prime minister, Miguel Primo de Rivera. Now, I don't know who Rivera is, but apparently Miguel's his cousin.
Yep. And with that dictatorial prime minister wanting power, guess what rose?
A certain El Estado Español.
Yep. The Second Spanish Republic, I guess?
No.
Sort of.
You see, in
Not really.
1831, the people voted in an election for a new prime minister, and the Republicans won, and they ousted the monarchy. This began the Second Spanish Republic. Ugh.
Oh, okay.
Which didn't last for that long. It lasted until 1936 when it collapsed, and then Spain broke out into a civil war.
Oof. La Guerra Civil Española. And the weird thing is, most Latin American countries, we actually had to accept you all as immigrants to our countries. That was when you guys did your biggest immigration over here.
Yeah, that's where did you know that Fidel Castro's father was from Galicia?
I think I did, yeah.
Guess who was also from Galicia? Franco. And guess who were friends? Castro and Franco.
Yep.
Which I find really weird. But we'll get to Castro eventually. Because we're going to talk about the various Latin American dictatorships that happened in Latin America. Well, not obviously all of them. We're mainly going to be talking about ones in the 20th century because those are the most interesting.
Yep.
So on one side you had the nationalists, and on the other side you had the Republicans. Now we're going to talk about you. So I'm going to start with the nationalists because those are the faction names I'm most familiar with. Are you familiar with all the Republican factions?
I kind of am a bit, not really. I'm more familiar with Franco than anything else.
All right. So on the nationalist side, you had two monarchist groups. You had La Renovación Española, which the Spanish Renovation, and they wanted to restore Alfonso the 13th to the Spanish throne because at this point he was still alive. And then you had another Camarist groups, and we talked about them earlier, the Carlists. And I just want to mention that the Carlist militia, they were called Los Requetes, which is pretty fucking cool. And then you have the fascists, and they had pretty freaking cool names. So you had El Falange Española, the Spanish Phalanx, and then you had Tejada, which you tried to, which on one stream you bullied me in trying to say was Fede, but
but it turned out to be an A, so I got fucked.
Yeah, it's Tejada, which stands for Confederación Española de Derechos Autónomos, the Spanish Confederation of Autonomous Rights. I'm pretty sure I'm saying all this right as well.
Yep.
And then
Sounds like a feminist group, by the way. Anyway.
What, Confederación Española de Derechos Autónomos?
Yeah.
And then Franco merged all these groups together into this is a long one. El Falange Española Tradicionalista y de las Juntas Ofensivas Nacionales Sindicalistas.
De las Jones.
y de las Jons.
Pinche cojones. Anyway.
But exigir, because there's a joke that one of my white friends said. I said exigir, and he said, "Oh, does that mean exit here?" And I'm like, "No, shut the fuck up."
What the fuck?
Yeah, but
Oh my god.
what, you don't like exigir? I don't remember what that means, but exigir.
Exigir is like to demand something, kind of.
Never mind. I'm not gonna say that on stream right now.
Oh fuck off.
Oh no. But yeah, so El Falan, and then they sent volunteers to Germany, and they were called La Legión Azul, the Blue Legion. And these guys were pretty feared. So let's go back to Latin America and talk about their dictatorships of the 20th century. So let's start with Mexico. So this is your area of expertise, so I'll let you take the field.
Okay. Well, in Mexico, what we like to call dictatorships was not really dictatorships. So, I mean, of course, we had the ending of the Porfiriato, which was anything from 1901 to 1910, I would say. Whenever the Mexican revolutionists had to expel him and exile him to Europe, and then from there we had like a really 1910, 1920, the Mexican Revolution. In this period, a lot of shit happened, from Madero's assassination all the way to freaking atheist presidents, which I would never thought would come out of any Latin American country, to be honest. And then from there we have freaking
Oh my god, I hate to interrupt you, but I went on someone's streams, but someone commented on one of Max's streams with the YouTube account ISIS member, and I'm dead.
oh fuck. Fucking Allahu Akbar 69 should be a fucking account. Anyway.
You make that fool. Anyway, continue.
So yeah, Mexico had atheist presidents in the 1920s, man. Like
That's
freaking,
weird.
yeah, I know. Obregon, Calles. They were all from Sonora too, which kind of seems a bit sketchy.
That that is kind of sketchy. Not gonna lie, that's kind of sketchy.
Yeah. But speaking about the 1920s, do you want to talk about some other dictatorships that happened this time? Because Latin America was, let's just say, was
The
crazy.
1920s. So sorry. What notable? Okay, so since in America, like I said, you had not Jose Antonio, but Miguel Primo de Rivera in Spain. Um, you had I can't think of anyone else at the time in Latin America that was a dictator.
Actually, Alan Gomez and our favorite one, Trujillo.
Trujillo. Oh, Trujillo. That's right.
Yep.
I remember I found this song. It was called El Generalissimo, right? And then they just started to this guy screaming Trujillo, and it was freaking weird.
Oh no.
I'll have to send it to you. I think you'd like the song. Like legit, I think you'd like the song, but that's besides the point. So now we go to the 30s. You had Franco in Spain, and then I can't think of anyone else in the 40s. Okay. I think of anything else. But in the
Actually, the
50s,
40s. We actually did have some weird shit going on here in Mexico in the 40s. We had from, I don't know if Miguel Alemán Valdez took his presidency at this time, but I do know that Avila Camacho did. And then, yeah.
mm. Then in the 50s, we had Alfredo Streisner.
The dictatorship of Paraguay apparently raped some children while to pull a John the Priest little
Wait, he
move.
did? I didn't hear about this.
Yeah, I did. I heard he kind of did his little raping
Holy,
children things back in the.
I didn't know. Streisner was a Catholic priest. Jesus,
Yeah, apparently, according to some Paraguayans.
I don't doubt it, fool. I don't.
And then we have our famous, because I don't really can't really think about much in the 50s, but we have our famous Fidel Castro with his Revolución Cubana and his communist stuff.
Fidel Castro. That's right. Did you ever read the stories about him being obsessed with dairy?
I did not.
Apparently, this fool, after eating a meal, could eat like 2 pints of ice cream or something like that. And I'm like, what the
Oh,
fuck?
fuck.
It's like, holy.
That's who we like to call el pinche lechero right there.
Like, I can't even do that, and I eat a lot. You know what I'm saying? Like, you eat a lot, I'm assuming.
Yep,
When
I
you,
do.
so, like, Jesus.
2 pints of ice cream, man.
He also went crazy over, like, wanting to breed cows, the Cuban cows, with the
Mm-hmm.
Canadian cows that produce a lot of milk. Um, and they ended up creating this one breed of cow that could produce, like, a few gallons of milk per day. And I forget what the cow is called. I'm just gonna look up Fidel Castro's cow. Ubre Blanca was what they called his cow.
Let me
I don't,
guess it was.
huh?
Let me guess it was like a big cow or like what?
It was a breed of cow that Castro bred, and yeah, he was obsessed with dairy, which I actually find that whole him being obsessed with dairy kind of interesting in a weird way. But when the cow died in the 80s, he had a statue of it built, which not gonna lie, this it's kind of funny
Yeah,
because
having
it's
a
a cow.
statue built of a cow. Oh God.
But you know, to each their own, I say. You know.
Oh yeah. Speaking about the 1920s and Alan Gomez, because I was never able to freaking touch base on this, but did you know that Mexico almost went in a war with Venezuela?
How they don't even border each other. That's interesting, actually.
It was because you know how Mexico was a lot affiliated with those United States and ally thingy,
Yeah.
and since it was like the end of World War I, Alan Gomez was just making some threats. I don't remember. And then Mexico was just like, you know what? If you don't stop, we're gonna probably invade your territory and stuff like that.
That sounds about right.
Yeah, a lot of
And then we
fucking
get
topic.
to the 60s. Ooh, the 60s.
I don't remember much about the 60s in Latin America or Spain, besides Franco still being a dictator and actually implementing something pretty good.
Okay, the thing with Franco is that he was only really a dictator for about 11 or so years, and then he just kind of was there. Which is why I don't give Franco as much crap as I give other dictators. Because he was just kind of there for a lot of his tenure and he didn't do much. He kind of became a lot more lax. Because, in my opinion, Franco never really wanted power. Just did what he had to.
All for the sake of España.
Yep. Franco really was, like, controversial opinion, Franco was a hero. But that's just me. And him. I think Keith agrees with that opinion as well.
Also, if you want to talk about dictatorships, since I know that something is coming up in the 60s or 70s, do you want to include the Philippines in this because it is technically Hispanic?
Oh, yes. Anything for me to talk about the dictator of the Philippines, Ferdinand Marcos.
Yep.
Did you know they held the Beatles hostage?
Why did he held a Beatle hostage?
The Beatles, like the band.
Oh, he held the Beatles hostage?
Yeah, in the Philippines, in Manila.
Ooh, man.
Because him and his wife were big fans, I guess. I think also one of them had weed on them, which I guess was a no-no. Which, fair enough. Okay, so now we're in the 60s. You had such wonderful dictatorships as the Trujillo Dictatorship ended in the late 50s. If we're just talking straight Western Hemisphere, you had Papadoc Duvalier,
Oh yeah, Haiti.
you had Castro. Nothing too notable in Central America.
The
Uh,
U.S. was still part of the Cold War.
yeah,
Oh yeah, Pierre Trudeau, like predecessor of Justin.
yeah, Pierre Trudeau. You had, well, he's Canadian. We wouldn't consider him a Latin American dictator unless
It was Quebec, but whatever.
you had, wasn't Juan Peron of Argentina in the 60s?
Yeah, I think that was like that what they call the Peronista era.
Yeah, Peronista, because Juan Peron. You had Juan Maria Bordaberry in Uruguay. Have you ever heard of him?
No, I
He's
haven't heard of.
Oh, he was interesting. You had Streisner still in Paraguay.
That dude didn't end his dictatorship until like the '89.
89, yeah. Now to the 70s. There's a lot of them in the 70s. Okay, Bolivia had like 50 million dictators in the 70s. You had for the first half, for like the first couple of years of this 60s, you had 70s, you had Juan Jose Torres,
Hmm.
and then you had Hugo Banzar, the only dictator I've ever seen who was actually democratically reelected. Like, no joke. Democratically reelected back to power in the 90s.
'90s.
Yeah, like a good 20 years after he was done with his dictatorship, which I actually find that interesting. Hold up, I'm gonna pull up. Yeah, Hugo Banzar. He was president of Bolivia from 1971 to 1978. So for a good majority of the 70s. But then he was president again from 1997 to 2001. And he was democratically reelected, which that's actually kind of cool.
Yep. You know what they didn't talk about, but they're not really Hispanic.
But
I really want to bring this up because this was kind of the U.S. supported the military coup of 1964 run by many southern Brazilians only because the president elected at the time was a leftist.
yeah. Ugh. America, like the United States, has a bad history of doing that kind of stuff in Latin America. But Bansar was succeeded by someone he wanted to succeed him, named Juan Perada, and
Mhm.
he ruled from July of '78 to November of '78. So he didn't last that long. So he was replaced in a coup by an army general named David Padilla, and he was president from November of '78 to August of '79. So almost a year. But he was made to step down by Congress, and so he was replaced by someone on the one of these this old guy named Walter Guevara, and he ruled. He was an interim president until the next election, so he ruled from August to November of '79. He was briefly deposed by Alfredo Naust. It's a German name. I can't really pronounce it, but he was president for like 5 days, and then you had the first female president in Latin America, like in Bolivian history, who was Lydia Guayler. Um, and then she ruled from November '79 to July of '80, and she was replaced by her cousin, a general in the army, Luis Garcia Mesa Tejada. I don't know
Mhm.
if you've heard of him or not.
Lidia Aguilar and then Tejada. Yeah.
Yeah, Tejada was he was not a good guy. He was backed by Nazis, actually.
Oh shit.
He was backed by a former SS officer named Klaus Barbie, as well as an Italian neo-fascist named Stefano Kibicai, or something
Oh
like that.
fuck.
But not a good guy. He raided in drug trafficking, and he just kind of killed all of his political prisoners. But he was forced to step down by the army, and he actually died in 2018 in a prison in La Paz. So justice caught up with him. Now let's move over to their neighbors in Paraguay still had Streisner, Uruguay still had Bordaberry, but we go to
Brazil was kind of already getting done with this coup.
yeah, in Argentina, which we haven't really talked about. That we obviously there was Juan Peron, but there was a dictator who arguably did worse things than even him, and his name was Jorge Rafael Videla.
Oof, Videla.
My. This man, he led a regime of unspeakable corruption. The one decent thing he did was take responsibility for the stuff his regime did. They publicly institutionalized things like rape and murder. Um,
Hmm.
they took babies from their families when they were born. They executed political prisoners, and he was also backed by Nazis. But he died. He was dictator from 76 to 81. When did he die? I'm going to find it real quick so that we can, because I know exactly how he did die, and it was in a kind of funny way. He died in 2013, aged 87, because he slipped in the shower. What a fitting end to this fucking ass clown. Not even
I
gonna
know.
lie.
Justice caught up with him. How? He fucking fell in the shower. That's how justice caught up to him.
Yeah, well, I mean, there was a Byzantine emperor who was smothered to death with a bucket. I don't know if you heard about that story.
But did he deserve it?
I don't know. Now we move over to Argentina's next door neighbor, Chile.
Oh yes.
Now we discuss someone who,
Shit.
coming to the end of the 70s, don't forget Morris Bishop. Grenada has a French speaking minority, therefore Latin. Hmm.
Granada has its French-speaking minority, therefore Latin, but the majority still counts. I would say.
Yeah. But now we talk to Chile. So in the beginning of Chile, you had in from 70 to 73, you had someone who most people would not consider a dictator, but someone I personally do consider a dictator, Salvador Allende.
Yep.
Um. Okay, so was Salvador Allende horrible? No, not. But his policies did completely destroy the Chilean economy, and he pissed off a lot of the army. So in 1973, specifically September 11th, the Army, Navy, and Air Force led a coup against the president. And who was the leader of all that? Augusto
To
José Ramón Pinochet Ugarte.
mi general.
But Augusto Pinochet, a dictator who I feel like has a mixed reputation. I don't think he was horrible, but I do acknowledge that he did do some bad things. He did throw the socialists out of helicopters. We can all acknowledge that. But so did Videla. The thing with Pinochet is that I don't feel like Pinochet was evil or just a tyrannical dude. He just he just kind of existed. And he did improve the Chilean economy. I'm not saying that he didn't do anything bad. It's just he did some good stuff too. Um, Now to the
He was not the best,
80s, not the
but he
best, of
helped
course.
Chile move forward.
Yeah. Also, the music about him fucking wrecks. Also, the 80s. Finally we see the fall of Alfredo Streisner. of Luis Tejada, of I can't really think of anything. In Peru, however, in the 1990s, I can think of one dictator, Alberto
Alberto
Fujimori.
Fujimori.
He's still alive actually. He's like 82. He's actually the same age as King Juan Carlos of Spain.
I thought he recently died, but okay.
Wait, no, hold up. We're gonna verify this. Cause if Fujimori died, I didn't hear about it.
I think he did.
Let's see. Let me see. Alberto Fujimori. No, he's still alive.
Oh, no. What I did hear was that he was sent to prison.
No, he is in prison.
Yeah.
He is currently 83. Crazy world.
And then we had the usual, the Haitian. Did Baby Doc still reign in the 80s in Haiti?
Yes, he did. Until 86.
Oh.
Because I guess the Reagan administration, and that's kind of the end of Latin America. Well, we're forgetting one. Bolivia's dictator for a long time in the 2000s. What was his name? He was president for a long time, like 14 years.
Shit, we moved all the way to the 2000s? Fuck.
Well, yeah, because there's not really that much I can talk about. What was his name?
Morale.
Huge
Evo Morale.
socialist, huge pro-indigenous.
Yeah. Wasn't really indigenous though, because according to the media, according to all the articles that I read, in his presidency, apparently he wasn't able to speak no Aymara nor Quechua. Apparently it went all the way to his presidency when that knowledge was lost. And I'm like, I don't believe that.
Wow.
Also, we forgot to mention how stuff wasn't getting really good for Venezuelans in the 90s. And we forgot to
Oh
mention
yeah.
Hugo Chavez.
I did forget him. Hugo Chavez. Chavez. Fuck Chavez.
Made Venezuela a shithole, made the government embarrassing to watch on TV. And let's just say Hugo Chavez was Hugo Chavez.
Yeah, he died in like 2013. Fuck Chavez. But that's pretty much it.
And then we have just like a current people like Maduro and that stuff about Luis Arce being president now. And then, yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty much a lot of stuff for Hispanic history.
Shit!
What?
Noriega.
Noriega! How could we forget Noriega?
Fuck.
Shit! How could we forget Noriega? I'm Panamanian too. That's fucked. How could we forget Noriega? That's fucked.
No.
I had family who lived under Noriega too, which is pretty sad. But Panamanian military general Manuel Noriega staged a coup in 80 something, and no, fuck Noriega. He was
Made his country get invaded?
fucking idiot. Fuck Noriega. He's a piece of shit. And that's pretty much it.
Yep.
So I gotta go do some shit, but I had a fun time doing this with you, Luis. You have anything last to say?
Yep, I gotta say, just viva todo Latinoamérica, viva la hispanidad, viva el imperio español y viva el continente americano en general.
Sí. Viva Hispanidad. That's all I have to say. Viva Hispanidad. And I will see you guys with another video soon. And yes, me and Luis will be doing more live streams on like this.
Yep. Peace.
Peace.